Hey, welcome to Jobber Professional Development Day, and thank you for joining us for our panel on how to price your services for a profit. We're joined today by three awesome panelists. They're three of Jobber's ambassadors. First, we have Mike Coffey, and Mike runs Coffey Custom Builds. They're a custom woodworking and furniture business in California, and he also co-hosts the Another Woodshop podcast. We also have Irene Zibin. Irene owns Sunshine Cleaning. They're a green residential cleaning company in British Columbia. And Chant Zingvanza, and he's the owner of Zingvanza Landscaping in Minnesota. And he also founded the Chant's Daily Hustle channel on YouTube. So welcome, Mike, Irene, and Chant. We're so glad to have you here. Today, our panel, we're going to discuss how to keep your prices competitive, how to share your prices with your clients, and also when you make adjustments to your prices, and also how to adjust prices over time. And so I've got some questions, but it's an open conversation. So my questions are just to really keep everyone going, but jump in and we'll get started. So Chant, first of all, for you, I know you've been in business, I think you said about 12 years. And how have your prices changed in that time period? Not only, obviously they've gone up and you've got material cost as well as labor cost, but have you changed the way that you actually determine pricing?
Yes, we definitely have changed our pricing. When I first started, we didn't really know how to price. I was just making enough just to make money, right? Because I had a full-time job and I jumped into landscaping and lawn care, just thinking
Side
that,
gig.
yeah, side gig, just thinking that I just need to make more than my full-time job, right? I didn't realize there was insurance, there's, labor, everything that went into the business. And so as I grew and the years passed, I really didn't have a formula of changing the price, but I knew that when I was losing money, I knew that I had to change,
Well,
once.
that's a good point. And I would say, I think it probably, in my own opinion, is that the difference between companies that make it and don't make it is really how they
Mhm.
price. I
Right.
mean, more than anything, more than quality, more than customer service, more than anything else, it really does come down to a pricing strategy.
hmm So yeah, once I got some time in my, time in, I knew that I couldn't just do, for me, for the landscaping side of things, I couldn't do just hourly wages. Now we do bids. We go out there and we set a price, and the price will be just a full bid. There's no hourly or anything in it.
Do you
So
break down the difference between labor and materials, or is it just a straight up one
n-
price type of bid?
not to the customer. To the customers, there's no labor rate or anything. It's just straight the bid. Just say we have a 350 square feet face of wall we got to build. They just need to know how much we're charging for that square footage.
Just keep it
You know,
simple.
keep it simple. Yes,
Yeah, the
because
customer facing part is simple.
yes, yeah.
And do you share with your employees, the details of the bid? Like, we expect labor to cost this much. We expect, or you just break it down again and keep it simple on that side of the business as well.
What I do is I just keep it simple for on my end. Like our employees, they just need to know the square footage of how much we're charging and stuff like that. So
That's great.
mhm,
So Mike, really both you and Chant are in businesses that not only are labor intensive, but also have significant material costs. And I know we're all pretty familiar these days that wood prices have just gone crazy, and that's a
hmm
significant part of anybody whose business starts with the name woodworking. So can you tell me a little bit about what how you go about setting your pricing and the factors that you look into?
Well, I mean, I echo Chant, honestly. In the beginning, it was it was it was a lot of, oh, this isn't enough. And then I finally
mhm,
sat down and I made myself a spreadsheet, and I have a very strict formula that I go by now. I have a bid sheet that I work through. It it's really easy for me to forget all the details that need to go into everything I build. So having it right in front of me on a form makes it very easy for me, because there's a lot of different factors that that can have a varied range of prices on them. Honestly, I mean, I could do a table for a customer out of one wood and I could do a table for a customer out of a different wood, and the price could be like 40-50% difference just because of the wood pricing alone. I mean, the material pricing is very high these days. And with these custom jobs, there's just a lot of it. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of labor and a lot of material. So for me, I've made myself a spreadsheet. That's my bid sheet. I work off that religiously, and it keeps me honest with my pricing. And that's the thing that's helped me the most with my pricing. It's kept me in line. It's allowed me to come up with what my costs are, which includes my time, my shop helper's time, my labor, anything that I can encapsulate on there. And then I add my margins to that. And then that usually gets me where I need to be. And that's really helped me find success in the last year and a half that I've been really chasing this full time. So
gotcha.
That's been helpful.
So Irene, both you and I are both in the same type of business. We're in the residential cleaning business, and unlike these two guys who have a lot of material costs, our cost is primarily labor. How do you go about determining what your pricing is?
Well, the main factor that I look at is my payroll costs. As you mentioned, labor was a big expense. So I look at things like Canada Pension Plan, employment insurance, travel time, work safe insurance, business insurance, and then non-payroll costs such as fuel, supplies. This year we'll be paying 5 days of paid sick leave to all employees. That's something new January 1st. So that has to be factored in. And also, I'm skipping back a step now. Employee motivation is a very strong factor when I raise my rates, because if my employees aren't happy, then I'm going to have a lot of turnover, and that's not good for business.
That's right. That's an added cost. And it's great that you've figured out a way to encompass that into your pricing. So do you, in your business, do you have a formula that says, based on these labor costs, then I know that I need to be charging these kind of rates?
Well, I don't actually have a spreadsheet or something like that to calculate, but what I do is in every month I input my my profit minus my expenses on an Excel spreadsheet, so I can kind of tell where I'm at. And so month by month, I can see how much profit I'm making, and prices are just going up all over the place. So
that's right. That's right.
We need to raise our prices every year. Mm-hmm.
Right. So let's talk a little bit. Let's switch gears a little bit and stick with that. So I know in being in the cleaning business, when everything is dependent upon labor, there's only a couple of different ways that our cleaners can get a raise every year. They either have to become more efficient, or we have to be more efficient as a business, or we have to charge more. There's really not a lot of other things we can do. So Irene, just sticking with that, how do you go about doing price increases, and how do you communicate those to your customers?
Well, generally around the end of the year, I start thinking about, what my upcoming expenses will be this year. I know that I'll be putting out more money for the paid sick leave days, and also the cost of personal protective equipment, or gloves, things like that, is also increasing. So I'll start with any new customers that I get January going forward. I'll implement a new rate and test it out on my new customers. And once I'm comfortable with that new rate and it's accepted, by the new customers, then I'll introduce that rate to my current customers. I usually give them like a 30-day grace period so they can shop around and, check out other cleaning companies. Usually they stay with us because they like us, they know us, they trust us. But also, if some of them do drop out, typically about 5%, maybe as high as 10%, that leaves room for a new client that's willing and, they're wanting our services at the new price.
That's a very good point. That when you do have people leave you, that is a great opportunity to fill in with someone willing to pay the higher rate. I know a lot of times we get stuck with, that's a client that I've been with us for a while, or maybe they haven't even been with us for a while, and we want to stick with them. But reality is, we should probably let them go do their thing, and we should backfill them with someone who is willing to pay more. So, Chant, let's skip over to you. So you operate a landscaping business, and you're in a northern area, not tropics, but far from tropics these days. So it's a seasonal type business. So do you typically raise prices every season? And if you do, how do you communicate that to your clients?
Yeah, we adjust every year and every season too. The way I communicate with our client is we just strictly email them, let them know that we're raising our prices. And if they have any questions or concern, we let them know that they can contact us. If there's no change, no problems or issues with it, then we just continue to service as usual for our lawn care and maintenance.
That makes a lot of sense. And also, email saves a lot of money. Do you have any way to verify that? What if they say, I didn't receive the email? Do you know that they receive it?
Yes. So we use the Jobber app and software, in the back end. You get to see that if they received it or opened it.
Okay. Do you require, do you have a contract or anything like they sign?
Yes. Every season we shoot them a contract, and we ask them, to sign the contract or give us a call,
Yeah. How about you, Irene? Are you using like a contract or anything, or it's just a, recurring service and just rolls over?
Well, right now I go by word of mouth, so I don't.
We do
fill
too,
in
by the
any
way. So,
contracts.
yeah. So same thing. So Mike, so you're the guy sitting there that gets to a new customer every time versus having a lot of recurring clients.
Yep.
So from your perspective, I mean, you could spend a lot of time just giving out prices and never getting business off of it.
Yeah.
What do you do to qualify your clients, based on the different demographics that you serve, and also to communicate pricing? Do you have anything on your website, or do you have a store or anything, storefront that?
So I do have, like I said, I have the Etsy store, and I do have an e-store on my site, and that does have items that are always on there, and they sell, they sell regularly. And a lot of these people don't buy the same things over and over again, right? So if I increase the price, there's no ripple effect to customers, because I don't see them very often. They're not going to buy the same thing multiple times. The customers I do get that are repeats, they get treated like gods, because those are the guys, when they're coming back for another big piece of furniture, they're spending a lot of money, and them coming back means a great deal to my business. So, but the bottom line is, I'm in a position where I don't have to explain my pricing to them, because they aren't buying the same thing as last time. But overall, really, my rates in terms of labor, they haven't changed in 2021 at all. They've been about the same. The only thing that's affected the bottom line is, once again, the material prices and all the kind of overhead things have affected those prices. So my need to communicate price increases is just not a factor in my business, because I'll talk to that person, I'll give them a price. I have if I get 15% of the jobs that I bid for my line of work, I'm very happy.
15%. Yeah.
Yeah. That's about where I'm at. If I bid out a lot of work often, and that's why I had to have such a tight formula for myself. And if those 15% of people, maybe 5% of those 15% come back for another piece of big furniture, because just people aren't filling up their houses with lots of big pieces of furniture. That's kind of.
But that's not a bad number, because it's a third. You're getting a 30%.
No, I'm happy with it.
Yeah. So so Chant, as far as the percentage of how often you do bids or you do quotes, what is your close rate?
We're around the 25 closing the rate on our rates. We don't want to get too overbooked. What I mean by that is that when I get too much job and I'm scheduling it in and I'm booking them in, it doesn't give me room for the client that really pays, and that really it's a big project that, profit margins are bigger. It don't allow me to schedule those in. So I don't want to be overbooked.
Right. So you leave space in your calendar for the high margin client
Yes.
that you know
Yes.
is going to come.
Yep.
That's a
Hmm.
really good point there, and it's a way that
Yeah.
you're able to raise overall averages up.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
you have
So
those.
yeah. So then you don't. So then for us, like we don't get stuck at a certain revenue every year. You give
Right.
yourself room to grow as well.
Right. That's a good point. Irene, how about you? I mean, I hate to tell you guys, but in the cleaning business, people don't call until they're ready to buy. So what is your closing rate?
Um, Basically, well, we have a lot of repeat business. Whoops, there goes my headphone. We have a lot of repeat business, and so I leave a few spaces open. Can you hear me? No,
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, we got
got
you.
back. We have a few spaces open, but generally I like to stay almost fully booked, so that my employees have enough hours. Mhm.
Yeah. It's a different
Um,
business. A recurring revenue business is a
yes.
different, and we don't do in our businesses a lot of one times. We do some, we do some, but we don't have the one time like you do, Chant, or you do, Mike,
Mhm.
where it's a significant number.
Mhm.
Um, you know, we might get something for hundreds of dollars, but we certainly don't get tens of thousands of dollar kind of jobs. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about competition and pricing and how you determine your prices. And we'll just go around the group here. And Mike will just start there because I'm a clockwise kind of guy, I guess, and you're at the top of my screen. So how do you make sure that your prices stay competitive in your market?
Well, fortunately, a lot of the custom stuff, I don't really have to. There are some people for the people that are coming in to buy something like that, they want the thing to be made exactly like they want it, and there's not a lot of people in the market that can do that. So they can go outside the market and find people that do that, but there's going to be added cost to getting it brought in. So for a lot of these larger pieces, I don't. I just try to make sure my price is as reasonable as I can make it while still having my margins in there. And if I get it, great. I'd rather I'd rather not get a job I'm not happy with the number on. Honestly, I end up it's just too tight of a margin and I lose the number. So to make sure I'm competitive, I just I really don't have to do that so much on some of these larger pieces. That's just kind of the
Hmm.
truth, the fact with it. It just doesn't have to be that way. However, things that everyone does buy, like kitchen cabinets, doors, things like that I do make sure I'm in line on those because there is sort of a precedence for those. The door prices are about the same. A set of cabinets is about the same. Um, but a big custom table where a customer needs it for 14 people and they want a chair that's this style or a bench that's this style. There's no way to compare it. There's nothing on the market to compare it to. The only thing you can compare it to is roughly the material cost and the labor. And that's where my
Oh,
spreadsheet comes in.
yeah. On material cost, are you getting margin on that as well? So you're marking up materials, or just most
Yeah.
of the markup is on labor?
There's a markup on material because, and that goes into the question you asked earlier of do I break out my price? I didn't answer it, but the answer is no, I don't, because I do get my pricing is a result of the relationships I have with my vendors, and I know for a fact that they would be very unhappy if I shared the pricing I get with other
Right.
people.
Right.
That would be betraying our relationship. So I don't share those with the people.
Great,
And
great
I
point.
typically find a middle ground between what I pay and what the customer would pay if they just walked in to buy it themselves. So they're still getting a deal with buying it through me, but I'm still making more money than I paid for it. And that covers any of my overhead costs, such as the time it costs me or my guys to unload the truck for the delivery, things like that. So there's got to be markup in there because what I pay isn't exactly what I pay. I still got to pay people to unload it and stack it in my shop. So
Does your industry have a particular target profit margin that you shoot for,
you,
or
I mean, if I get 30%, I'm super happy.
and that's
But
a
I
and
don't.
that's a combined labor and
Yeah,
material?
that's bottom line. That's a bottom
Yeah,
line number. If
blended.
I typically drop, yeah, I typically drop a 30% on top at the end when I do all my calculations. 30% makes me very happy. I don't know what the industry standard is. I actually have not asked that question around, but I feel like my background, I came from commercial construction. My family's business before this, I was in commercial construction, and that was typically the number we would shoot for in there. So just coming from that side of the business, I brought that over to my business. So as these projects get much larger, there's a lot more liability involved, and that margin goes up a bit. But on average, I shoot for 30.
Okay. Chan, how about you? Going back to the question there, how do you make sure your prices are competitive in the market, and what do you do to, determine what those are?
So for like lawn care and landscape, the lawn care and maintenance side of our division, that has to stay competitive because anybody can go out and mow and trim, right? But the landscaping part is where it gets custom. And so for me, I really don't look at what everybody else is charging because I don't know their overhead. I don't know everything that they pay into, but I do. And so
That's a great strategy, what you're saying here. And
100%.
I think I just want to go back and repeat that real quick, is he's not necessarily looking at what everybody else is charging because he doesn't understand their overhead. He's making sure that he's charging enough to cover
Yeah.
his overhead and his profit margin, which is why he's successful. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's a very strong point.
Yeah, so we build our clients now that are not just for price driven. They're more driven for what we add to their life, like the landscaping that we do, patio and stuff like that. They're willing to pay. When I first started, all it was about if I can get a client low enough that I can make some money. Now we're to the point where we're trying to add more value than having them just see the price, And so I can't be looking at what everybody else is doing, but I have friends in the industry, so I would in Chicago and Maine, everywhere, and I just call them up and say, hey man, get a feel of what they're charging, but at the same time I can't charge the same what they're charging in different states.
Just really just like a smell test to make sure that you're not too far off.
Yes, we're not too far off. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a targeted profit margin that you look for in your business?
We're at 30% as well.
30% as
shoot
well.
For. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. And both you guys have some CapEx. You've got tools and trucks and things like that you have to cover. That's not necessarily, that doesn't necessarily show up in the OpEx, all of it. I mean, I'm sure some of it does, but yeah. Okay. So Irene, same question to you. How do you determine that your prices are competitive?
Well, usually about once a year, I have someone call around to all of the cleaning companies, or quite a few of the cleaning companies in our area. So I include all of the top cleaning companies, and then a lot of the solo cleaners, that maybe operate from Craigslist. And so I don't do the calling myself. I usually have a family member or a friend do that so that they sound authentic and they know that I'm not spying on them. And then I usually set my prices somewhere in the middle. I have been inching my way towards top prices, but it will be a while before I get there. And
what do you think's holding you back from charging top pricing?
I don't know. I think this year will be my biggest price raise. So I think maybe what has held me back in the past was, maybe not having enough staff or enough company vehicles. But I think now we're ready to go a little bit higher.
And do you have a target profit margin that you look for?
Well, if I get around 20%, I think that's great. In the cleaning industry, it can be anywhere like from 10% to 30%. So 15 to 20% is good for me right now. Mm-hmm.
And that's actually exactly the number that we use. So we try to keep on the top line. We try to because again, our cost of goods sold is basically labor. So we try to make sure our labor cost, including workers' comp and taxes, is 50% or under. And then that leaves 30% for expenses. And then hopefully we have 20% to deal with at the end of the month. So very good points. We're almost out of time. I will give you a couple of things from just years of experience in the cable TV business. Okay. So not related to home services, but definitely related to price increases, as you all know. With cable TV, you get a price increase every year, and that's where I'll start. For everyone out there is don't be afraid to raise your prices. Prices are just a natural occurrence. Everybody out there knows that they would like to have a wage increase every year, and there's nothing that should hold your people back from having a wage increase as well. And a lot of times, like we were talking about earlier, there's only a couple of ways to get that, and that is either raise your price or become more efficient. Hopefully, over time, you've become more efficient, but at some point in time, there's the only thing left is to raise your prices. The next thing is don't be ashamed of raising prices. And just like our panelists said, they've all been very upfront about how they charge. But your prices are, you're the expert, not necessarily the customer. And so you know more about how your pricing should work more than anything. And I think the other piece that I got from all three of you guys is pricing is more of a science than it is an art. All three of you guys all said the same thing, that you have spreadsheets, that you're looking at the data, and that you're basing your prices on actual facts and data that you have built up over the years of experience that you have. One of the things that it seems to be one of the hardest things when you're starting a business is, especially if it's a business that you have to go and do a bid on, is that it's like an art to you. You're like, you look at it, you don't really have a way to determine it. It's like, okay, well, that's going to be $800. And what you all three said is that that's not what you do, that you actually build that price from the bottom up, and you include your labor cost, your material cost, and then you put a margin to that. So even though we're all in very different fields, there's some commonality there on how we all determine pricing. And I think that's a good takeaway for the group as well. So does anyone have anything else they want to add? If not, I think we're just about out of time. So again, Mike and Irene and Chant, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your personal experiences and to the group on how you do pricing. And we're going to turn it back over to all the good folks at Jobber and the Professional Development Day team. And we'll be available for a little while in the chat room. So if you have any questions, be sure to ask, and we will be happy to answer them for you. Thanks again for everybody's time.